The sun beat down on the plains like punishment. Heat shimmered off the fence posts, and the dust hung in the air so thick it stung your teeth. A woman stood there barefoot in the dirt, wrists raw from rope. The name she'd been born with was Clara Hensley, though her husband hadn't called her that in years. To him, she was mine. Her white dress was the color of despair now, torn, dusty, and clinging to her like the last shred of pride she had left. The flies didn't even flinch anymore. They'd grown used to cruelty around here. Her voice had given out hours ago. The only sound left was the creak of the rope and the dull hum of the wind that wouldn't help her either. Then came a sound that didn't belong. Hooves on dry earth, slow, steady, purposeful. From the rise above, the creek rode a man in a worn hat, gray in his beard, coat the color of storm clouds. Elias Boone. Folks used to call him Preacher, though he hadn't preached in a long time. He'd been traveling through Silver Creek country, looking for a quiet place to bury his guilt. But the Lord doesn't let some men rest easy. He saw her before he even reined in his horse. The scene didn't need words. A man with a bottle was standing near the fence, proud as a rooster, laughing at the woman he'd broken. Jeb Hensley, her husband. A man too small inside to notice how big his sins had gotten. "You teach a woman obedience. You do it where folks can see," Jeb said, spitting into the dust. Elias swung down from his horse, quiet as a church pew before prayer. "Untie her," he said. Jeb smirked. "You best keep riding, stranger. Ain't your business." Behind the barn, someone hissed under their breath. "Leave it, mister. He'll kill you." Elias didn't leave. He stepped closer, his boots sinking into the dust like he was walking into judgment. The sun lit up. The iron buckle of his belt, the rifle on his shoulder, and the look in his eyes. The kind that had already seen too much to turn away. He took out his knife. "She's done bleeding for your pride," he said, cutting the rope. The fibers snapped. Clara fell forward, knees hitting dirt. He caught her before she hit the ground completely. The moment hung between them, silent and heavy. "Touch her again," Jeb growled, "and I'll put you under this fence." Elias looked up. No fear, just something deeper, older, the steady calm of a man who'd stood at the edge of hell before. "You already buried enough souls, son," he said softly. The wind rose then, kicking up grit. The ranch hands froze, watching something they knew would end badly. Elias turned, lifted Clara gently onto his horse. She was shaking, half-conscious, whispering words that didn't make sense anymore. Her wrists bled onto the saddle. "You don't get to take her," Jeb shouted, drawing his gun. Elias didn't draw his. He just said, "Wasn't asking." And then he was gone, horse thundering toward the horizon, a trail of dust and disbelief behind him. They rode until the sun dipped low and the air cooled. When they reached the old cottonwood by Silver Creek, he stopped. Clara's head lolled against his shoulder, her breath shallow. He laid her down by the water, tore a strip from his shirt, and wiped her face. The dust came off like sin being washed away. She blinked, eyes dazed, voice barely there. "Am I dead?" He smiled faintly. "Not yet. Creek water's cold, though. Might wake you up." Her lips cracked a dry laugh, the kind that hurt to make. "Why'd you help me?" Elias poured her a drink from his canteen. "Couldn't ride past," he said simply. "Some things a man don't get to ignore." She stared at him, unsure whether to trust him. Her hands trembled as she took the water. He saw the bruises on her wrists, the dirt caked under her nails, the way she flinched when he moved too fast. "Rest," he said, turning toward the fire he'd built. "You're safe now." But they both knew safe was a word that didn't mean much in this country. As the fire cracked, Elias looked across the water. The sunset bled red through the trees. "You got kin?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "No one left that'd claim me." He nodded. "Then I reckon that makes two of us." Something in her face softened at that. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to her like she still mattered. She tried to smile, and it came out shaky but real. They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't hurt. The wind hummed through the cottonwood leaves like an old hymn half remembered.
The firelight danced between them, flickering across the scars neither could hide. And for a moment, under that bruised purple sky, both of them almost believed the world could still be kind. Then came the sound. Faint at first, a dog barking somewhere far off, then nothing.
The silence deepened until it felt alive. Elias's head lifted. He heard hooves, slow, measured, coming from the ridge. He reached for his rifle. "Behind the wagon," he said softly. Clara froze. "Is it him?" Elias's eyes didn't leave the dark. "If it is, he's got company." The fire crackled once, then died down to embers. 3 shapes moved out of the night, shadows with guns. And the peace they'd borrowed from the world was about to be repossessed. The night was so still, it could have been listening. The only sound was the slow breathing of the creek and the faint creak of saddle leather in the dark. Elias crouched low by the fire pit, rifle ready. The flame was down to coals, red and quiet, like a heartbeat waiting to stop. Clara crouched, behind the wagon, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. 3 riders came down the ridge, moving in a line, slow, deliberate. The lead one had a lantern swaying from his saddle horn. The light carved ghostly shapes across the land, flashing across faces that looked too calm for honest men. "Stay down," Elias murmured. They stopped 10 yards away. The leader called out, voice thick with whiskey and authority. "Evening, preacher. You picked a bad night for playing hero." Elias didn't move. "Who sent you, Clay?" The man chuckled. "Same one who's got a broken jaw back at his ranch. Jeb Hensley says you kidnapped his wife." Elias's jaw tightened. He left out the part where he tied her to a fence. Clay spat into the dirt. "Ain't my job to judge what a man does with his woman. Law's clear on one thing, though. She goes back, or you hang come sunrise." Elias's voice dropped, low as thunder about to break. "You try to take her, Clay, and you'll ride home with one less man." The night seemed to pause right there, waiting to see what kind of story it wanted to be, one of mercy or one of blood. Clay sighed. "I ain't here for sermons." He lifted his hand. The 2 riders behind him moved forward, guns out. Elias didn't warn them twice. The crack of his rifle tore through the quiet, echoing off the creek walls. The first man dropped without a sound, just a thud in the grass. The second fired back, missing by inches. Clara screamed. Sparks flew as a bullet glanced off the wagon wheel. Elias ducked, rolled, fired again. The second rider fell backward, his hat spinning off into the dark. Clay cursed, reining his horse sideways. "You damn fool! She ain't worth—" The rest of his sentence vanished under the report of Elias's rifle. The lantern swung once, fell, and shattered. Oil hissed into flame, lighting the creek bank in a brief, terrible glow. When the smoke cleared, Clay was gone. His horse thundered into the distance. Elias stood breathing hard, gun still raised, eyes searching the shadows. The wind carried the smell of gunpowder and blood. Behind him, Clara whispered, "You killed them." He didn't answer right away. He just stared into the darkness where Clay had fled. "No, ma'am. I buried them. They just ain't laid down yet." They rode through the rest of the night, silent. By dawn, the sky blushed pale pink, and the land opened up into the Badlands. Jagged stone, dry creek beds, miles of nothing. Clara leaned weakly against Elias's back. "Where are we going?" "North," he said. "There's a town called Pine Hollow 2 days out. Sheriff there owes me a favor." She hesitated. "You trust him?" "Trust don't come easy," he said, "but it's all we got." The sun rose behind them, cutting long shadows over the plain. Clara looked at his hands, rough, scarred, steady, the kind of hands that had built things once before they'd learned to break. "Were you really a preacher?" she asked quietly. Elias nodded. "Used to be." "What happened?" He stared ahead. "I stopped believing the Lord listened. Then one night I found out he still did. I just didn't like what he had to say." She didn't press him. Some stories had to bleed out slow. By the second night, they made camp in a canyon where the rocks turned red in the moonlight. Clara sat by the fire, her face soft in the glow, while Elias cleaned his rifle. "You could have left me," she said finally. "Would have been easier." He shook his head. "Easier ain't always right." A silence stretched between them, gentle this time. Clara's eyes glistened. "I thought kindness died out here. Guess I was wrong." He met her gaze, steady but sad. "Don't mistake me for kind, miss. I just know what it's like to wish someone hadn't ridden past." She didn't answer. She just looked at him, really looked, and saw the weight behind his calm, the sorrow, the guilt, the quiet vow to never stand by again. That night, as the coyotes sang in the distance, Clara dreamt of her home, the one that had stopped being safe long ago. But for the first time in years, the dream didn't end in pain. It ended with a man's voice saying softly, "You're safe now." The next morning, the sun found them early. The canyon glowed gold. Elias was saddling the horse when he froze, eyes on the ridge. Dust rising. Riders again. Clara's breath hitched. "Jeb?" Elias's voice hardened. "No, worse. The sheriff." He could see the badge glinting even from here, and the men beside him weren't deputies. They were hired guns. Sheriff Cole Travis was a man Elias once called friend. Now he was riding out with a warrant, and the name on it was Elias Boone. The sun hadn't yet broken the horizon when Elias saw the ridge move. A dozen riders, dust trailing behind like smoke from a slow fire. And in front of them, shining like a snake's eye in the early light, the sheriff's star. Elias finished tightening the saddle. "They found us sooner than I figured." Clara stood beside him, pale in the dawn, the blanket still around her shoulders. "What will you do?" she asked quietly. He slipped his rifle into the saddle holster. "What I should have done years ago." They rode hard north for half a mile, the canyon narrowing into a choke point of stone. Elias slowed, scanning the terrain. "We make our stand here," he said. Clara's voice shook. "You can't take them all." He looked at her, calm as a man accepting the truth. "No, but I can make sure they remember what it cost." He handed her a small tin from his coat pocket. Inside was a folded piece of paper, worn, water-stained. "When you reach Pine Hollow, give this to the marshal. It clears your name. And mine, if anyone still cares." Her eyes filled. "You're not coming with me?" He smiled, the kind of smile that broke more hearts than it healed. "Some debts don't get paid by running." The riders appeared at the canyon's mouth, Sheriff Cole Travis in front, his badge glinting dull gold. "Elias Boone," Cole's voice echoed off the rock. "By law of Jefferson County, you're under arrest for murder." Elias stepped into the open, rifle across his arms. "Law of Jefferson County died when you sold it, Cole." Cole's jaw tightened. "You could have stayed gone." "Why come back?" Elias's voice was steady, carrying across the canyon like a prayer that had waited too long. "Because I couldn't leave her. And because some men deserve to be looked in the eye before the truth ends them." Cole looked at the men behind him, then back. "You're outnumbered." "Always have been," Elias said. "Ain't stopped me yet." The first shot came from one of the hired guns, wild, nervous. Elias dropped to one knee, fired once. The man spun off his horse. Then it was chaos, smoke, gunfire, echoing thunder in stone walls. Cole's men fanned out, firing blind. Elias moved like a ghost between the rocks, steady and precise. Two more fell. A bullet tore through his shoulder, but he didn't stop. He could hear Clara's horse galloping away behind him. Faster, fading, safe. Then silence. Dust drifted through the canyon, glowing gold in the morning light. Cole stepped out, bleeding from a graze on his temple, revolver in hand. You always did think you were the righteous one, preacher. Elias leaned against a rock, breathing heavy. Blood ran down his arm, dark and slow. Not righteous, he said. Just done pretending. Cole raised his gun. Guess it ends here, Elias nodded once. It always did. They fired at the same time. Cole staggered backward, shot clean through the chest. Elias dropped to one knee, his rifle slipping from his hand. The world went quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels like mercy. By the time the marshal from Pine Hollow found the canyon, the gunfire had long since died. He found the bodies, the badges, the spent shells, and near a fallen horse, under the red rock wall, lay Elias Boone, still, peaceful, hat over his chest. Beside him, a single note. Tell her the road's clear now. Tell her she was right to run. Clara reached Pine Hollow at dusk the next day. Her hands were blistered from the rains, her eyes hollow with dust and tears. The marshal met her at the gate. You came from the south? She nodded. He said to give you this. The marshal unfolded the paper, reading the faded words. His face softened. He kept his promise. Clara looked past him, to the horizon where the canyons burned orange under the sunset. He always did. Months later, folks passing through Pine Hollow would hear stories about a preacher who stood against a gang and fell with his rifle in hand. Some said he died for a woman. Others said he died for a sin too heavy to live with. But the ones who knew better said this. He didn't die for guilt or for love. He died to prove mercy still had a name out here.